Today on TFBTV, the Flux Raider. But the short-barreled rifle version, not the brace version you've seen a million times already. Flux Raider. Name sounds a little bit like a space pirate themed porno, and in fact, I'm not sure it's not the title of a space pirate themed porno, but it's also the name of Flux's newest chassis, or at least it's called a chassis. In actuality, this is like a build your own SMG. Honestly, I thought it was going to be a total gimmick at first. I've been following Flux for a while. I interviewed the Flux guys a few times at SHOT Show, hung out with them at Gracie's Tavern in Salt Lake City, great establishment. A few years back, they sent me their Flux Brace for the Glock, which I referred to as a gun switchblade. You somewhat can conceal a Glock pistol with that brace attached and collapsed. After you draw, you hit the trigger of the brace and a spring locking mechanism rapidly deploys the brace, allowing you to stabilize. Yeah, stabilize, and definitely not shoulder your pistol, making a more stable shooting platform and making it more accurate. The original Flux Glock brace was an ingenious design, and I suspected that a company clever enough to come up with something like this was going to be going somewhere. But there were some things I didn't really like about the original Flux brace. As I mentioned in my review video from a few years back, the main issue was that holding the sights just a few inches from your nose made them not very effective. Of course, an optics-ready pistol being much more common these days would help. But even then, the optic is still bouncing around whenever the slide moves right in front of your nose. The brace pistol is too much of a compromise compared to the sophisticated compact PCCs that are available to us today. The Mp5k, the Mp5k, or the awesome APC-9K, the first pistol caliber submachine gun to get a contract from the Army since the grease gun. And my, how the tables have turned. Now Flux is making the Raider, and the Raider is making a case for itself to be not only the best brace pistol, not only the best brace chassis, but possibly the best PCC on the market. But let's get through the specs first before we get to my subjective, but pretty much correct 100% of the time opinion. So, what is the Flux Raider? Mostly a hunk of plastic, an incomplete hunk of plastic, like a plastic tin man waiting for you to drop a serialized P320 fire control unit hard in it. A polymer Pinocchio that wants to become a real boy after you put a SIG slide and barrel inside of its body. All right, that got a little weird, and I'm going to stop now. What I'm trying to say is that you order the Raider from Flux and it isn't a firearm. You're just getting this little plastic part with the stock or the brace. You don't need a background check or an FFL to get it because it's not a gun. You're getting a non-functioning polymer chassis. It's a gun part. It's just like ordering a SIG P320 frame. All you need to make it into a functioning carbine is a SIG P320 FCU, which is a serialized component that you would need a background check for. You would also need a complete slide assembly from a SIG P320, that is the slide, the barrel, and the recoil spring. Or, if you already own a SIG P320, then you pretty much have what you need to complete the Raider. Drop your FCU and your slide into the Flux Raider, which only takes a couple of minutes, and it's plug and play, and you're ready to raid. While most 320 slide assemblies will work in the Raider, check their website for compatibility. For example, I know that if you put a subcompact slide in this thing, not going to have a good time at the range. And the sights on the slide also need to be a certain height. The fiber optic sights on the slide I used here, the X5, were pretty much the exact height of the front hood of the Raider, meaning when I installed it for the first time, I racked the slide about 20-30 times, and it shaved off the slightest amount of material, as you can see in the B-roll here. But if you have suppressor height sights, you might not be able to install your slide. The regular factory sights should work just fine. As I said in the intro, I'm reviewing the SBR, or the short-barreled rifle version of this gun. I submitted my trigger group for Form 1 to make it a legal short-barreled rifle. That means that I get to use a buttstock back here instead of a brace, and that I get to use this fancy forward magwell as a vertical foregrip without going to jail. But then if I leave the state with this gun and without asking for permission from the ATF, federal pound me in the ass prison. The Flux Raider I have accepts full-size SIG P320 magazines and larger. The unit itself is 11 inches long, collapsed, 6 inches tall, 1.7 inches wide. It's a mere 18 ounces with the chassis only, and they say around 40 ounces assembled. That's the same weight as a regular steel 1911 government model. With a full-size X5 P320 slide, my FCU, the Holosun 508T, this one weighed 47.5 ounces without magazines. And that's because this unit is mostly polymer. The metal components are chrome moly steel, which is rust resistant, a nitride finish. Plastic, obviously, not as durable as steel, but as we've discovered in the pistol space, polymer is durable enough for most applications. While you do sacrifice some durability in going with plastic over steel or aluminum, you usually get a less expensive and lighter weight platform. Look at Kel-Tec's products, for example. Two-dimensionally, the 5-inch barrel Raider looks only slightly smaller than my 6-inch barrel H&K SP5k Pdw that I love with my whole entire heart. But the Flux is much thinner, half the weight, and a third the price. In fact, my Mp5k Pdw was 82.5 ounces without a magazine in, which is exactly 35 ounces heavier than the Flux Raider. The Raider is so handy that during Hurricane Ida just a week or two ago, I found myself strolling the neighborhood during the storm with the Flux Raider and an HK bungee sling while doing odd chores for neighbors who were out of town or needed help. You almost forget it's there, unlike the more robust but chonkier all-steel MP5, which definitely has some heft to it. As alluded to, for my build, I used the 320 X5 Legion, which has a 5-inch barrel. Many K-size submachine guns use 4 to 6-inch barrels, so the ability to put a 5-inch or longer barrel in the Raider is a pretty nice feature. That gives me 9mm ballistics, better than probably 90% of 9mm handguns out there, and better than some other smaller PCCs. With a Legion FCU and trigger, I get SIG's best P320 trigger, which pays real dividends in this platform. I would suggest splurging for the Legion FCU. One of the best and most creative features of the Raider is the spare magazine well up here. You'll notice that at the very front of the chassis, there's a magazine well holding a spare magazine. There are actually 3 magazine release buttons on the Raider, and I'm trying to contain my excitement here about how fucking cool this part is. You've got a traditional button mag release right here on the right-hand side, and then you've got another on the left-hand side. It's like a little push paddle here. You see that you push forward, and then you have a large button that's flush with the chassis under here and behind the spare magazine. So when you hit that left side or that right side magazine release, only your main magazine in the grip is going to drop out. But if you hit the button behind the spare forward magazine, if you just press it halfway, then just this magazine comes out. But if you press it all the way, then there you go. Both magazines deploy, which is really cool. That means you get one ultra-fast reload. Again, this is one of the more intelligent features that I've seen on any pistol caliber carbine. You also have to bear in mind that you're using fist-to-fist reloading, a design feature that's coveted in submachine guns, as seen in other successful SMGs and PCCs like the Uzi. The thought process is that this is going to be faster, more intuitive, and you can easily bring one fist to another and reload in low visibility or without having your eyes on the magazine well. The ambi safety lever is intuitive, easy to engage and disengage. Swipe down for fire and up for cold. My version came with a side and bottom Picatinny rail on the muzzle end for adding a light or whatever else you'd want on this, maybe a tack sack. I mean, I don't know what else you would want that isn't a light sling, optic, and a silencer on this, but you've got some space here for it. Slings, easy. There are two QD mounting sockets towards the rear of the gun. One's on the butt stock, one's on the chassis in front of the stock. I like the fixed point on the chassis better, especially for a single point sling rather than a point here on the stock that would move as the stock deploys. Speaking of, this gun is so light that a single point sling should be just fine for it. Although I'm typically not a huge single point fan. I guess if you wanted a very light 2-point, you could use the pick rail in front for another sling point, but that sounds like you're just trying to make things difficult. As far as suppressors go, my buddy Nick Chen over at the TFB blog said in his review that he's heard that suppressors can be a little tricky with the Raider. I didn't have a threaded X5 barrel to test, so I didn't use one, but I can't imagine there'd be an issue if you used a Nielsen device in your suppressor. But the least I can do is at least make a comment to you and inform you that if you definitely want to mount a can on the Raider, I'd check with Flux about compatibility first. I tested the Surefire X300 Ultra Light on mine, and I don't think there's anything that pairs better with this gun. It's compact, it's light, and it's bright with 1,000 lumens, ready to make someone think over their life choices right quick with a flip of a switch. Another neat feature that addressed one of my primary concerns with the original Flux Brace is the optic mounting rail back here on the rear hood of the Raider. Unlike the original Flux Brace, the height is just right for ergonomically bringing this optic right up to your eye instead of having to tactical turtle into the rear of the slide to see your sights. I used the tough as nails Holosun 508T, which is an ultralight titanium reflex optic weighing just 2 ounces. 50,000 hours of battery life. Okay, so it looked cool. It had some cool features, and it was fun to screw around with the double mag deployment in my living room, but I was sure that this gun was not going to hold up at the range. It just seemed like a neat toy. But indeed, it was the range that changed my mind on the Raider. All right, now we're backed up 40 feet using the Holosun 508. Let's see what the accuracy is like out of this thing. All right, that was 10 rounds. Damn. So you had 6 rounds right there. I mean, you can see our sight's a little bit low into the right, but you had 6 rounds right there, 4 of them basically on top of each other with a couple of little titties on the side, and then 4 that I probably flung a little bit right there. Let's do that one more time. All right, I threw the piss out of some of those, but oh yeah. I mean, chewed up the 10 ring. Like, that's pretty good at 40 feet. I let some of my buddies mess around with it at the St. Bernard Indoor Shooting Center, and I think they were sold on this design too.
That's pretty slick. Dope. That's kind of slick.
Yeah.
I mean, if this is your platform, dude, that's 30 rounds at least.
Having the Legion trigger made the pull excellent. Recoil was more than manageable, especially with the stock, which I happen to like much better than the brace. If you're on the fence about it, I say go ahead and just form your fire control group, even if it is a legal clusterfuck. The non-reciprocating optic up here kept shots on target, and with all these factors combined at 30, 40, 50 feet, rapid firing a 5-round group into a few inches is easily doable. Damn. 1, 2, 3, 4. A little bit of a flyer, but I can live with that. 40 feet. And rapid fire. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. all in the 10 ring, 1 in the 9. This thing really effing works. Like the more I shoot it, the more I like it. Light recoiling. I got to put my trigger in here, which is a Legion trigger, so the trigger's fantastic. The accuracy is great, especially under speed. I mean, that's the thing, is you can the sight's not going anywhere. You've got the ability to use a light. I'm pretty impressed. The more I shoot it, the more I like it. More or less, Flux has taken the Raider and given you PCC performance in perhaps the smallest and lightest possible package. Yeah, there are smaller chassis out there like the original Flux Brace, but I didn't think the juice was worth the squeeze over a dedicated PCC. I also really like the CAA MCK, which would be competing in this exact same space. As you can see from this B-roll, the CAA MCK is a little bit chunkier than the Flux Raider. And in spite of the fact that I like some of the features from the CAA MCK, I think that the Flux Raider is generally better made and more well thought out than the MCK is. One of the best parts about this is that, all things considered, you could possibly get out for less than $1,000 for a complete Raider. Obviously, if you do what I did and you opt for the X5 Legion engine to power this frame, you're going to spend a lot more money. But there are a lot of you who either already own SIG P320s or who could scoop up a plain Jane P320 on the cheap and be in for under $1,000. Between us, I like this option much more than any other compact PCC in this price range. You need to move up to SIG, H&K, or B&T before you have a real dispute over which one is the better buy. As far as downsides go, I wouldn't call these cons as much as I would say they're trade-offs. The main thing is that this gun is primarily plastic. We talked about this already. If you want to talk about the most durable compact submachine gun in the game, probably looking at the Mp5k Pdw. The Mp5k is almost exclusively steel construction, but it's bigger and heavier than the Flux. The Flux is a featherweight, but you just can't expect the same type of durability out of plastic that you get out of steel, and that should go without saying. Fortunately, with the Flux, all the important parts that need to be metal are metal, like these stock arms and most of the buttons and levers on the thing, along with a few other critical internal components. Like I said already, the Flux is half the weight of the Mp5k and a third of the cost. A second potential issue is the lack of backup iron sights, at least on my version. I know there are others that have the capability to see through a little window here, and you can see your rear sights and your front sights on your pistol. My version did not have that, as you see here. Even if you tried to put an iron sight back here, though, you can see there's no notch or anything for front sight, so you can't really have a set of iron sights, but it's 2021. It's not really that big of a deal at this point for something like this. Well, yeah, in a full-size AR-15, I'd love to have backup iron sights for a tiny PCC shooting 9mm like this. I mean, even companies like Vortex and Holosun are making relatively inexpensive but durable and reliable optics that have years of battery life, so this isn't a huge con. Another very nitpicky issue for me is the slide release. You've got 3 options. The normal slide release that you have on the P320 is a little bit out of the way because of the size of the Raider's grip, and it's a bit of a stretch to get up to it. Another option is just go over the top and rack the slide, which is what you have to do to charge the gun anyways. But between the muzzle hood up here and the hood in the back with the sight tower on it, you don't have a whole lot of space to be dynamic, if you'll excuse my use of the word, in racking the slide. After trying both of those, that is, using the slide release or racking the slide, I opted for racking the slide. I found it was more intuitive. There is a third option. You can use this lever here that unlocks the stock as a means to depress the right-hand side slide release, but I chose not to use this method. If there's any rearward pressure on the stock and you depress that slide release button, the stock can collapse, and sudden flaccidity is a side effect best avoided. So I'd maybe just go over the top. There's a clever fourth option made by third parties I've seen out there, and that is a makeshift cocking handle that you can install right here where your optic mounting plate would normally be. That could also be a really good option. In conclusion, the Flux Raider SBR is going to join the James J. Reeves pistol caliber carbine collection alongside my MP5s and my MPXs. If you're okay with the compromises of plastic, you're rewarded with outstanding ergonomics, great performance, well thought out features, and a lightweight and compact platform that takes relatively common magazines. Guys, that is it for me. Flux did not pay me for this review. I was surprised how much I liked this gun, but we do not accept money in exchange for positive reviews. So do us a favor and support us. Check out patreon.com/TFBTV. Check out subscribestar.com/TFBTV. Throw us $1 a month, throw us $2 a month. But hey, if you join at the $5 or the $10 level, you are automatically entered to win one of 4 free guns every single month. We like to give back to you guys for supporting us and for keeping us independent. Thanks again for watching, guys. Take care.